welcome back to Sound of Applause, American Gothic. It was called Savory Secrets BBQ, a name that whispered of closely guarded recipes and mouth-watering flavors. Though it had only been open for about 4 months, it had already become the talk of the town. The joint was located on the outskirts of Harmony Creek, a small town in rural Texas, and had a peculiar charm. It only opened its doors after sunset and closed down before 9 p.m. Despite the limited hours, a long line of cars and hungry patrons was a nightly spectacle. People were obsessed with the taste of the barbecue, making it a constant topic of conversation. But behind the wild success of Savory Secrets, a different, much darker story was unfolding. Abe's Classic BBQ, a beloved local spot run by Mr. Abe Henderson, had been a town institution for decades. It was now on the brink of collapse. For years, Abe's was the only barbecue joint in Harmony Creek and a favorite among the locals. But since the arrival of Savory Secrets, his customer base had dwindled to almost nothing. Mr. Henderson, once known for his legendary brisket, now spent his days sitting on a worn wooden bench in front of his empty restaurant. His gaze was distant, lost in thought about the grim fate of his business. He had tried to figure out what made Savory Secrets so special, but he could never find an answer. He'd tried everything. He refined his own time-honored recipes, even lowered his prices, but it was no use. Customers still flocked to Savory Secrets. The townspeople started to talk. Some felt sorry for old Abe, but even they couldn't deny the irresistible pull of the new barbecue place. Whispers began to circulate. What was the secret behind the new joint's success? Why did people seem almost hypnotized, compelled to return again and again? News of Mr. Henderson's struggles eventually reached his extended family. Daniel's parents, who were close with Abe, felt they couldn't just stand by. After all, they owed him a great debt. Years ago, when Daniel's family was going through a rough patch, Mr. Henderson had helped pay for Daniel and his older brother's college tuition. Now that Abe was in trouble, they wanted to repay his kindness. "Daniel, tomorrow I need you to go see Abe in Harmony Creek," his mother, Sarah, said to him. "I heard last night that he's in some serious trouble." Daniel, relaxing in the living room, turned to his mother. "What kind of trouble, Mom?" Sarah sighed softly before explaining. "His business is about to go under since that new barbecue place opened. His customers have all but disappeared. He's even in debt now. I want you to go there and give him the help I've prepared." Hearing this, Daniel nodded in understanding. He knew how much Mr. Henderson had done for his family and was more than willing to help. "I'll leave tomorrow morning. I'll pack a bag now. Besides, my college break is pretty long. A little time out in the country might be good for me." That night, he began preparing for his trip to Harmony Creek. The next day, Daniel took a Greyhound bus from the city to Harmony Creek. The journey to the small town took about 3 hours, followed by a 1-hour cab ride from the bus station. Along the way, he passed vast, sun-scorched fields, rolling hills, and quiet country roads that felt untouched by time. The cool morning air made the trip pleasant, though a sense of unease settled in his gut as he thought about Mr. Henderson's situation. After several hours, Daniel finally arrived in Harmony Creek. He went straight to Mr. Henderson's house, which was located just behind his now silent barbecue joint. When he arrived, he was greeted by Abe's weary face. The old man looked years older than the last time Daniel had seen him. The lines on his face were deeper, his eyes sunken and tired. "Hello, Mr. Henderson," Daniel said warmly. Abe, who was sitting on his porch, looked up. A hint of surprise flickered across his face, which then softened into a faint smile. "Daniel, you came all this way. What brings you out here, son?" Daniel sat down next to him. "Mom told me you were having a tough time. I came to see how you're doing." It's been hard, real hard," Abe admitted, his voice raspy. "Ever since that Savory Secrets place opened, my restaurant has been a ghost town. I don't know why, but everyone prefers their food. I've tried everything to win my customers back, but this place is about to go under." Daniel listened intently. He knew how much effort Abe had poured into his business. "What makes their barbecue so special? Have you tried to find out?" "I have, kid. A few times. I even went there to eat once," Abe said, shaking his head. "And the taste, it's just unbelievably unique. That's what keeps people coming back for more." "Maybe they have a secret ingredient? Or a different way of smoking the meat," Daniel suggested. "That's what's so confusing. There's nothing strange about their setup, but everyone who eats there is hooked. It's like something is pulling them back, making them come back for more. Daniel fell silent, a strange feeling creeping over him. He decided then and there that tonight, he would go to Savory Secrets BBQ and find out for himself what was really going on. Daniel's curiosity grew. What made this barbecue joint so special? Why were people willing to wait in line even before it opened? With some hesitation, he joined the queue. The people around him seemed agitated, impatiently waiting for their turn. When the doors finally opened, a middle-aged man with a friendly smile greeted the customers. "Come on in, folks. The special brisket is hot and ready for you," he announced in a warm voice. Daniel walked inside and chose a table in the corner. His eyes scanned the room, trying to uncover what made this place so captivating. The other customers sat quietly, waiting for their orders. There was no chatter, no laughter, none of the usual sounds of a busy eatery. Everyone seemed serious, their gazes almost vacant. Soon, a waiter brought a steaming plate of brisket to his table. The strong aroma of spices filled the air, so pungent it made his nostrils tingle. Daniel looked at the plate with mixed feelings. The brisket looked ordinary enough, sliced thin and glistening with sauce, served with a side of coleslaw and a cornbread muffin. He watched the other customers. They were all eating ravenously, as if they didn't want to leave a single drop of sauce on their plates. Some closed their eyes as they took a bite, pure bliss written on their faces. But something felt wrong. Not a single customer was talking. They were all engrossed in their food, eating in a focused silence, like people in a trance. Daniel frowned. He picked up his fork and, as was his habit, said a silent prayer before eating. He took his first bite, but instead of the heavenly flavor everyone raved about, his tongue was met with a bizarre taste. The sauce was bland, almost bitter. There was a strong, metallic, gamey smell mixed with spices that seemed old, even rancid. The meat itself was tough and had a flavor that made his stomach turn. Daniel struggled to swallow the bite and quickly took a sip of water to wash away the strange aftertaste. Good God, why does it taste like this? He thought. It's so foul. The smell is awful. He carefully lifted his head and looked around again. Everyone was still enjoying their meal with gusto. No one else seemed to notice anything wrong. Was he the only one who felt something was off with this food? Daniel put his fork down and pretended to take another bite, but he didn't actually put the food in his mouth. His hand trembled slightly as he poked at a piece of meat. Suddenly, he saw it. Embedded in the meat was a small, curved object, a human fingernail. His blood ran cold. It felt as if someone was watching him. He glanced toward a corner of the room, but saw nothing but a shadowy area behind the kitchen curtain. Daniel held his breath, trying to convince himself it was just his imagination, but fear began to creep in. His mind raced with terrible possibilities. Was this barbecue made from something it shouldn't be? Was there some kind of ritual or dark magic connected to this place? Why was he the only one who could taste the truth? He glanced at the owner, the middle-aged man who had greeted him. The man was smiling at him. At first, it seemed friendly, but the longer Daniel looked, the more unsettling it became. His eyes were sharp, as if he could read Daniel's thoughts. Daniel felt his palms begin to sweat. He had to get out of here. He slowly leaned back in his chair, pretending to admire the decor before getting up to leave. But before he could stand, a man at the next table suddenly slammed his fork down. The man's eyes darted toward Daniel, his lips moving as if he wanted to say something, but no sound came out. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. The man then turned away, staring blankly at the wall. With a swift movement, Daniel grabbed his wallet, threw some cash on the table, and stood up. As he walked out, the air inside the restaurant felt heavy and oppressive. He moved faster than he realized, as if something was following him from behind. Once outside, he took a deep breath. The cool night air hit his face, a welcome relief from the atmosphere inside. He turned to look back at the restaurant. From where he stood, he saw something that made him freeze. Behind the kitchen curtain, a pair of eyes was peering out. They weren't human eyes. They were red, deep, large, and glowed in the darkness. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Something terrifying was in there. Without a second thought, he walked quickly away from the restaurant, his heart racing. He knew one thing for sure. Savory Secrets BBQ was no ordinary place. Something was hidden behind its famed deliciousness, and he was determined to find out what it was. After his bizarre experience at Savory Secrets BBQ, Daniel immediately went to see Mr. Henderson. With a look of deep concern, he explained that the barbecue at the rival joint was nowhere near as good as Abe's. In fact, it was much more expensive, yet customers still lined up every night. Mr. Henderson just sighed. "They've got something we don't, Daniel, but we'll keep doing things the right way," he said with resignation, patting Daniel's shoulder gently. Seeing the look of defeat on Abe's face, Daniel's heart grew heavy. He knew how hard his old friend had fought to keep his business alive, but reality was cruel. Savory Secrets BBQ grew more popular, while Abe's little joint became quieter each day. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. An idea suddenly struck him. What if he applied for a job there? That way, he could see what was really happening behind the kitchen doors. Without hesitation, the next day, Daniel went to Savory Secrets BBQ and applied for a job as a busboy. To his surprise, he was hired on the spot. The pay was higher than he expected, much more than other restaurants offered. This only deepened his suspicion. Why would this place pay its employees so much? On his first day, a customer who had just sat down looked at him and smirked. "Oh, another new guy, huh? This place has only been open 4 months, but you're the 4th busboy they've had. Must be too busy, so everyone gets burned out. Hope you last longer than the others who just up and quit," the man said casually, before turning back to his food. Daniel just smiled faintly. This information confirmed his suspicions. Such high employee turnover wasn't normal. If the restaurant was so successful, its workers should be happy to stay. Daniel got to work. He took orders, served food, and cleared tables. But something bothered him. The customers always ate in silence, as if hypnotized by their meals. No one chatted, no one looked at their phones. They just focused on their barbecue, like people in a state of unexplained euphoria. When the restaurant closed that night, Daniel offered to help clean the kitchen area by himself, while his coworker, Rudy, was busy stacking chairs and cleaning the dining room. As Daniel wiped down the cash register counter, he accidentally saw something that made his skin crawl. Tucked under the counter was a small bundle of white cloth, tied tightly like a tiny shroud. At first, he thought it was just a rag, but when he reached for it, he felt a strange vibration run through his body. Not only that, but in a corner of the kitchen, he found a small tray with offerings wilted, flowers, and burning incense. This sight solidified his belief that something was being hidden. His heart pounded. He wanted to investigate further, but his footsteps froze when a deep voice sounded behind him. "What are you doing?" Daniel jumped. He turned to find Travis, the owner, staring at him with sharp, piercing eyes. Daniel swallowed hard, trying to stay calm. I was just cleaning the counter, sir. The place is closed, so I wanted to tidy up." Travis stepped closer, his expression growing colder. "Listen to me carefully. Your job here is to serve customers and wash dishes. You don't meddle in anything else, especially not around the kitchen or the cash register. Understand?" His tone was firm, almost a threat. Daniel nodded quickly. He knew arguing would only make things worse, but in his heart, his curiosity was burning brighter than ever. He couldn't ignore all the strange things he had seen. That night, Daniel went home with a troubled mind. He kept thinking about the barbecue joint and the secrets it held. Was this related to some kind of dark ritual, or something else entirely? Daniel knew one thing. He couldn't back down now. He had to find out the truth, no matter the cost. A few days passed since the incident in the kitchen. Daniel continued to work at Savory Secrets, but now he was more cautious. He no longer dared to go near the kitchen or the cash register without permission from Travis. He focused on serving customers, washing dishes, and keeping his designated areas clean. But even as he tried to act normal, his mind was haunted by the strange objects he had seen. Daniel tried to dismiss his suspicions, but a nagging anxiety followed him. He often felt like he was being watched while he worked. Sometimes, for no reason at all, the hair on his arms would stand on end. Yet, he tried to balance his fear with professionalism to avoid raising suspicion. One evening, the restaurant ran out of barbecue much earlier than usual. A massive crowd of customers had wiped out their entire stock before closing time. Daniel was busy wiping down a table when Travis approached him, his face more serious than usual. "Daniel, go to my house and get more stock. Tell my wife, Brenda, to give you the supply from the back of the walk-in freezer," he ordered curtly, in a tone that left no room for questions. Daniel nodded obediently, though he couldn't shake the unease that washed over him. He walked to Travis's house, which wasn't far. When he arrived, he knocked on the door. After a few silent moments, he heard footsteps approaching. The door opened, and Brenda stood in the doorway. Daniel swallowed hard when he saw her. Her clothes were stained with blood, and in her hand, she held a large butcher knife, still dripping with a thick red liquid. A sharp, metallic smell hit Daniel's nose, making his stomach churn. "What do you need?" Brenda asked, her voice low and menacing. Her gaze was sharp and deep. Daniel's mouth went dry. Ma'am, Travis sent me to get more barbecue. He said, "You've run out at the restaurant," he stammered. Brenda didn't answer right away. She just stared at him, expressionless, as if trying to determine if he was lying. After a few seconds, she finally gave a slight nod. "Wait here. I'll get it ready," she said before turning and going back inside. Daniel stood frozen on the porch, his mind racing. He couldn't shake the image of Brenda and the bloody knife. His curiosity took over. He looked for a way to see inside the house. Carefully, Daniel crept to the side of the house. He saw a window with the curtains slightly parted. He slowly approached and peered inside. What he saw made his blood run cold. In the room was a long table, messy with chunks of unprocessed meat. The knife Brenda had been holding now lay beside it, still caked in blood. The floor beneath was covered in fresh red stains. Daniel nearly lost his balance when he saw what looked like a human foot sticking out from behind the table. Daniel clapped a hand over his mouth to stifle a scream. His breath came in ragged gasps, his body trembling. He wanted to run, but before he could move, he heard footsteps approaching the front door. Realizing the danger, Daniel quickly scrambled back to his original spot, standing straight as if nothing had happened. A few seconds later, Brenda came out carrying a large, heavy cooler. "Here's the barbecue. Take it to the restaurant, quickly," she said in a flat tone. Daniel nodded stiffly, taking the cooler with shaking hands. He mumbled a quick thank you before turning and walking away. As soon as he reached the end of the street, he broke into a run, his breath heavy, cold sweat pouring down his temples. When he got back to the restaurant, Daniel placed the cooler in the kitchen, his hands still trembling. He stared at it with horror. He could no longer ignore his suspicions. Something terrible was happening at this place. Daniel knew he had to find a way to expose the truth, but how could he do it without endangering himself? Daniel couldn't focus. He was shaking uncontrollably, the fear evident in his eyes. The horrifying image of what he had just witnessed replayed in his mind, a scene he never could have imagined. He remembered the single bite of barbecue he tasted, and a wave of nausea washed over him. His breath was shallow and ragged, cold sweat drenching his shirt. He tried to act normal, but his heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst from his chest. "Hey, Daniel, what's wrong? You look pale," asked Rudy, his co-worker. Daniel swallowed, trying to come up with a believable excuse. I'm not feeling well. Think I'm coming down with something." Rudy frowned, but didn't seem too suspicious. "If you're sick, you should tell Travis." Asked to go home early. Without a second thought, Daniel approached Travis and asked to leave. He said he felt weak and dizzy. Travis seemed hesitant at first, but seeing Daniel's pale face, eventually agreed. Daniel walked quickly away from the restaurant, desperate to escape. Though he'd used sickness as an excuse, raw fear was the real reason for his hasty departure. As soon as he got back to Mr. Henderson's house, he ran inside, locked the door, and collapsed onto the bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. The gruesome image he'd seen was burned into his mind. What did I see? Why was it so horrifying? He tried to calm his fear, but it was impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, all he could see was Brenda's hand gripping the bloody knife, the blood-splattered floor, and the pile of meat with its foul, metallic stench. He clutched his blanket tightly. His mind kept racing. What kind of meat was in that house? Was it really beef? But what he saw was definitely not the leg of a cow. Daniel felt sick to his stomach, but he held it back. He took deep breaths over and over, but the fear wouldn't subside. Soon, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. With a trembling hand, he picked it up and saw Rudy's name on the screen. "Hello? Dan? You really sick?" "You left in a real hurry?" Rudy asked as soon as he answered. Daniel tried to keep his voice steady. "Yeah, man. I got super dizzy, so I just came straight home." "Alright, well, get some rest. If you're still sick tomorrow, just let Travis know, but don't be out for too long." I'm swamped working by myself. Yeah, Rudy. Thanks. Daniel ended the call and tossed his phone aside. He took another deep breath, hoping to calm himself, but his mind was still in chaos. He thought about quitting, but what if he just resigned? Would Travis and Brenda get suspicious? Would they do something to him? Daniel didn't know what to do. He could only hope that what he saw wasn't what he thought it was. Maybe he had been mistaken. The night dragged on, but Daniel couldn't sleep. Fear still gripped him. Eventually, exhaustion won. His eyes slowly closed, and he drifted into a restless sleep filled with nightmares. Morning came, but instead of feeling refreshed, Daniel felt even more stressed. His face was still pale, and his mind couldn't escape the events of the previous day. He debated whether he should go back to work or make up an excuse to stay home. But not showing up would surely raise suspicion. With heavy steps, Daniel decided to go to the restaurant. When he arrived, it was business as usual, crowded with customers. Travis greeted him with a sharp look. You feeling better, kid? Yes, sir. Sorry about leaving early yesterday. Travis just nodded and went back to serving customers. But Daniel still felt a sense of dread. Every time he looked towards the kitchen, a wave of discomfort washed over him, especially when he saw Brenda emerge with a friendly smile on her face. Daniel, are you all better? She asked in a soft tone. Daniel nodded quickly. Yes, ma'am, I am. But Brenda's eyes remained sharp, as if she could see the fear in his heart. Daniel looked down, avoiding her gaze. He didn't want to reveal his anxiety, but the more he tried to act calm, the more he felt like he was being watched. Time crawled by. Every clink of a fork against a plate, every whiff of the simmering sauce, it all felt more intense than usual. Daniel began to notice something he hadn't before. Why was this place always packed, even on slow nights? Why did the barbecue taste so different, so addictively good, that it made people come back again and again? The thought made him shudder. He started to wonder, was the barbecue at Savory Secrets really made from beef? Or was it made from human flesh, as he suspected? Daniel's throat felt dry. He wanted to run, but he had to find a way to leave without arousing suspicion. During a brief break, Daniel went out behind the restaurant for some fresh air, but as he stood there, he saw something that terrified him even more. In a corner, behind the building, was a large, suspicious-looking burlap sack. It was full, and there was a faint red stain on the bottom. A faint, foul smell hung in the air, mixing with the aroma of spices from the kitchen. Daniel's chest tightened. He had to find out more. But how, without drawing attention? He knew one thing for sure. He couldn't stay here much longer. He had to find a way out before it was too late. A week passed since that horrifying night. Daniel kept working as usual to avoid suspicion. Every day he showed up, worked quietly, and left as soon as his shift was over. But the strange occurrences continued. Daniel started noticing something unusual. The restaurant floor was often covered in muddy footprints that seemed to come from nowhere. Stranger still, the tracks didn't look human. They were misshapen, as if they belonged to something not entirely of this world. The foul, rotting smell that would occasionally appear was now more frequent and pungent. Oddly, only Daniel seemed to notice it. Whenever he asked Rudy about it, his coworker would just shrug. What smell, man? I don't smell anything, Rudy would say, looking confused. Daniel's fear grew with each passing day. One night, he took a selfie to send to his family back home, but when he looked at the photo, his heart nearly stopped. Standing behind him was a figure wrapped in filthy white rags. It looked like a corpse, its face twisted and decayed. Daniel gasped, nearly dropping his phone. He quickly deleted the photo, but the image of the horrifying figure was seared into his mind. Just after Daniel put his phone away, a new customer came in with a small child. When their food was served, the little girl, who was about 2 years old, suddenly burst into hysterical tears, her face contorted in terror. Her parents tried to calm her down, but the child continued to scream until they were forced to leave without touching their food. Later that evening, Travis tapped Daniel on the shoulder as he was cleaning a table. Daniel, I need to talk to you for a second. Daniel swallowed hard. Yes, sir. You've been a good worker. My wife and I want to invite you over for dinner tomorrow night. Consider it a thank you, and there's a bonus in it for you. Daniel's blood ran cold. He wanted to refuse, but he knew that would be suspicious. If he said no, Travis might realize he knew their dark secret. With a heavy heart, he forced a nod and accepted. The next night, Daniel got ready to go to Travis's house. But he had a plan. He had a contact in the state troopers, a man named Mike, who was his older brother's friend. Daniel had called him the night before, after Travis's invitation, and told him everything he suspected. Before leaving, Daniel made sure a call was connected to Mike's phone. He placed his phone in the pocket of his shorts, then pulled on a pair of jeans over them to hide it. When he arrived at Travis's house, the atmosphere was chilling. The house seemed larger and darker than he remembered. The lights were dim, and the air was cold. Daniel steeled himself and walked to the door. Travis greeted him with a wide, friendly smile. "Come on in, Dan. Have a seat." Daniel stepped inside cautiously. Brenda had already set the table. There was rice, side dishes, and a bowl of soup that gave off a strange aroma. "You're lucky tonight. We prepared a special meal just for you," Brenda said with an unsettling smile. Daniel sat down. He tried to remain calm, though every instinct was screaming at him to run. Before he could do anything, he felt a sharp, heavy blow to the back of his neck. His vision spun, and his head throbbed. Thud. Daniel collapsed to the floor. His eyes closed, but he was only pretending to be unconscious. With his eyelids slightly parted, he watched Travis and Brenda standing in the middle of the room, speaking in low voices that were just clear enough for him to hear. "We have to finish him tonight. We need another sacrifice for the month," Brenda said. "If we want to stay successful, we need to increase the number." "You're right," Travis agreed. "After this, so no one gets suspicious, we'll spread a fake story that he stole the cash from the register and skipped town, just like we did with the others. How's that?" Daniel held his breath. So they had done this before. He tried to stay calm, though his heart was hammering against his ribs. "Clean up the room first. Move Steven's remains into the other container so it's not taking up the whole table. We'll deal with Daniel as soon as he's out for good." Daniel's heart pounded. He wanted to escape, but the dizziness made it impossible to get up. He was losing hope. He didn't want to die. Just as the moment of his execution neared, just as he had resigned himself to his fate, suddenly, crash. "Texas Rangers! Don't move!" The sound of law enforcement filled the house. Travis and Brenda, who were busy with their gruesome work, panicked. They tried to escape through the back door, but the house was surrounded. Within seconds, they were apprehended and handcuffed. Daniel gasped for air, struggling to sit up, his body still weak. Mike rushed to his side and patted him on the back. "Dan, you okay?" Daniel nodded, still trembling. "I'm okay, Mike. You guys got here fast." "Of course. I hit the road the minute you told me about this a few hours ago. You're like a little brother to me. No way was I gonna let anything happen to you." The police immediately began a thorough investigation of the property. During the search, they discovered numerous human bodies buried in the backyard. Some were in a horrific state, with their flesh and internal organs removed. "We've been suspicious of them for a while," one of the local officers said, "but they were always too slick to catch." "You're lucky to be alive, Daniel." Daniel swallowed hard. He couldn't imagine what would have happened if he hadn't made a plan. That night, the mystery of Savory Secrets BBQ was finally solved. Travis and Brenda were arrested, with news reports suggesting they would face capital punishment, and their restaurant was shut down for good. But even though they were caught, Daniel knew the horrifying experience of working at that place was something he would never be able to forget. The story ends here. The town of Harmony Creek slowly began to heal from the dark secret it had harbored. In time, people started returning to Abe's Classic BBQ, not just for the food, but for the comfort of a place they knew and trusted. The long lines were gone from the edge of town, but the chilling memory of Savory Secrets BBQ would linger like a ghost, a grim reminder of the darkness that can hide behind a friendly smile.